Hey guys, Paquette here, and today I want to talk about Legion going core, my thought process on this. I'm not going to read this word for word, but basically the most important things in 3.8, Legion will be going core with a 10% occurrence rate, similar to Breach and Abyss. It will also be rolled into some other game elements, such as it'll be available through Sextants, Scarabs, Delve, and also a room in the Temple. So that's all, depending on your outlook, very cool or very not so cool. There's going to be some other additional changes. Vegan will be giving access to some Legion stuff. And then there'll be plans for Zana mod for Legion encounters. Okay. Now, I'm very glad that Legion's going core because I really like Legion as a core game mechanic. But I actually have some fairly big issues with the way that Legion's gone core. And I made a couple of notes. There's one other change that I forgot to mention. They're nerfing the waves in the 5-way encounters. Well, also for all the encounters, but when you get to those endless waves, the further in, the less each wave is worth. So if you're headhunter farming it, you'll be getting less loot. But if you're just an average person, you won't notice it. One thing which is nice about that change is they nerf it in a way where the average player won't be nerfed. So that's good. But I really dislike the 10% addition thing. So the reason why I have such a big issue with the 10% addition is GGG's been doing this basically ever since Essence League, which is something like 3 or 4 years ago now. Nearly every single well-received league since Essence has been added to the core game via a 10% addition, and then rolled into Sextants, Xanas, and stuff like that. Now, in theory, there's nothing really wrong with it, and it's cool that we're getting more stuff added to the core game, and the more stuff in the core game, the more rich of experience the core game is. The main issue I have with it is the fact that there's no target farming. There's no, oh, this player really likes doing this kind of content. I'm not saying, for example, that someone who enjoys Delve should only do Delve and nothing else. I think it's good that you need to engage in other forms of content. But I don't think it should just be completely out of your hands or just pumping loads of currency into it. Because it defeats a lot of the purpose with that. And then we also run into the issue that we had with Syndicate, for example, where Syndicate was a very intricate league, which was amazing when you could interact with it regularly. When they slapped it with the 10% occurrence rate, it felt absolutely awful. And it's just a very lazy way of doing it in my mind. So basically, I think GG are very creative developers, and I think they could do things slightly more interestingly. And some other options that have been thrown out there before, none of these are perfect. There are lots of flaws to everything, but these are some ones that we've had in the past. Atlas spawning mechanics, kind of like how you see Master Vision spawning on the Atlas, how you see Elder and Shaper spawning on the Atlas. Tempest or Flashback rotating zones, different mods in different areas, which changes either on the hour or on the day, or when you do something, the Atlas just changes how things spawn. That could be a more... I think stuff like that I prefer. I'm not a big fan of gamey systems, just a static 10% chance that there's no way of interacting with. That I don't really like, but when you feel like you're manipulating systems in your favor for an outcome you like, that I much prefer. Yes, you do lead into certain examples of setting up perma shaper strongholds or certain influence blobs, which can be a bit manipulative. That's kind of the stuff which is cool about Path of Exile, though. Having stuff where certain tile sets would further certain spawns. This isn't a perfect example, but just say theoretically, imagine if Nico, Alva, and Zana were only in indoor maps and everything else was in outdoor maps with a 20% occurrence rate. Just having some way of slightly tailoring into something so you have that teeny bit of control, I'd be kind of into it. Aligning to specific masters, having a new master introduced for Legion, having some lore reasons. Lore is kind of cool if you're into that stuff. League stones, I don't know. Basically just some way of interacting with it is something that I'd really enjoy. By adding Legion content to Alva and Delve, and this is also something we've seen with every single league since Incursion, Delve, Syndicate, Synthesis, and then Legion, all of these leagues have offered access to items from pre-existing leagues, which when those leagues aren't in the core game, for example, Talisman is great because you still get access to items you normally couldn't. But when you get, for example, increased access to incursion items, in Legion, the best way of getting certain incursion items wasn't through doing Alva, it was through doing Legion. That's something I have kind of an issue with. So by just spreading everything around, you kind of homogenize everything. And it also devalues the core identity of that original source. Alva is very heavy thematics on the lore. It has a certain look, it has a certain aesthetic. It's like, okay, this is what that is. When you start introducing all these other things into it, it kind of loses that identity a little bit. Now, the main issue I have there is it's just a case of, well, it will always be like that. So how do you engage with certain things? Okay, scarabs, prophecies, this. What's the best way of getting scarabs? Jun, Syndicate. Well, actually now the best way of getting scarabs isn't Syndicate anymore, it's Legion. And in patch 4 point blank, the best way of interacting with Legion won't be Legion. It will be whatever League Legion then gets rolled into at a later date. I would much rather a more specific system where you can target or lean into certain mechanics, and that is the only source of getting those items. We've seen a similar thing where boss only drops are then accessible through div cards, and then you see div cards which drop outside of that boss, and then it completely messes with the loot tables. I'm personally not a big fan of that. I'm also not a big fan where leaks become so rare people feel like they have to make div cards to gain access to items they would like to get but can't anymore. A good example of wasted content, or content which I just don't see the point of it, is with 10% occurrence bestiary. How many people regularly encounter the bestiary bosses? How many people don't even know there are spirit bosses because they just never encounter them? Those fights are cool fights. Thematically, they're cool. They're completely wasted because it's not you see like once or twice a league. And it's just like, what is the point of that ever existing? I'm really happy Legion's going core. I'm very excited to see 3.8 in future leagues, but I will admit I'm pretty disappointed with 3.8 that we're just seeing another 10% of X to occur with X. Also keep in mind a big part of 3.8 is reworks to how Delve and Syndicate functions, because Delve and Syndicate, once they got put down to random occurrence rate spawns, just didn't function the way they did in the league. You know, you can't have a super intricate league which requires constant engagement with, and then be like, you'll get it 1 in 10 maps, or pay 5 chaos and slap it on Zana. Anyway, I'm Tarky. 3.8 is being announced tomorrow. Very excited to see what it is. Have a good day. Bye-bye.